Just
Yeah,
on YouTube?
yeah, just on YouTube right now.
Okay, could do that.
Well, do you want me to try to do this?
Um, what else can you try besides what we need?
It's something about this, but I don't understand.
Okay, no, go ahead. We'll finish. We can, you want me to post a link to the YouTube video on your Facebook?
Yeah.
All right, guys, what's up? So we have been having all kinds of technical difficulties. Also, do I look as pixelated to you as I look to me? um, hopefully not. Anybody's on here. Um, let me see if I can get this. I apologize. We should not be going live yet if we weren't ready for this. Okay, someone's on here. Hey, I can't see your name because it's not showing me. Will you tell me, is my picture really pixelated to whoever's watching this? Um, all right, guys. Sorry, I'm gonna post the link. No, you're good, Jessica said. Okay, great. Oh wow, this is awful. I can hear myself in my ear on the phone. That's weird. Okay. Guys, I'm just telling you right now. I was not cut out for technology. I just wasn't. Just wasn't. Okay. Copy the link. Okay. All right. I'm really sorry if you're still on here. It'll just be 1 minute. I just can't type and talk at the same time. Okay. So looks like it's working. Posted. Okay. I had a couple text messages. Okay. All right, guys. Okay. Sorry about that. So, I'll just be honest. Tuesday nights are a little bit of a challenge because we have Wyatt, our 8-year-old, is in jujitsu, which I love that he's in jujitsu. I wrestled for a really long time, and I think jujitsu is just as good or maybe better than that. So he's doing that, and Lucy, our 6-year-old, if you guys know us, our precious little 6-year-old, that yeah, we're partial, but she's cute. Um, she started dance tonight. She did tap and jazz, and it was one of the cutest things ever to watch. So we got back from that and then had dinner, and then we're a little bit rushed trying to get kids to bed so we could do this video for you guys. I'm gonna wait. I posted the link on Allison's page. Our Facebook live streaming was not working tonight. So usually we try to post to both, but it just wasn't working. So um, we're just gonna do YouTube tonight. So I posted the link in the Facebook page, and we will just go with that. So Allison is still praying over kids upstairs. She told me to go and get started because we were running so late. So I am going to um that's not really I'm gonna get started. Full disclosure, I did write a lot of the content. There she is. I don't know how to if we want to just keep going. I posted the link on the YouTube page
No,
or on the Facebook page, but okay, cool.
Scooch over though. And
Ooh, Allison, real hot coffee. That's real hot. Courtney, what up? What is up, Courtney? Okay, so sorry I'm not good at filling for time. I really apologize about that. But now that my beautiful bride is back and almost ready, I'm gonna hold off on getting started. But tonight is about prioritizing your marriage. It's something that we think is very, very important. And according to the surveys, it was by far the number one thing. Every single survey we got in except for one had it at the top. So it said when you're looking at all your statistics on the scores, the bar was like all the way across for this, and then it kind of trickled down. And I was kind of surprised that survey that weren't there some topics that I was like, oh, that'll be a big topic. And they were
Unless people are just afraid to see
close this.
this thing.
You can just close on and push that up against it. Unless people are afraid to say those things, they didn't have to like put any notes or anything.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think it's just through I think through as many like, retreats we've done with marriages and all, like we know there's certain topics that just always come up.
Yeah.
And some of those didn't get answered as high as I thought they would. But prioritizing your marriage, huh?
Cover all of
We're just gonna cover all.
today.
Yeah, not all today, but
But yes.
so tonight's about prioritizing your marriage.
What's funny is so that was something he added to the survey, and I was like, "What's that mean?" Like, I don't even know what that means.
They did say the camera looks fine. It looks like we're pixelated on there, but is that just your screen or something?
That's just fine.
Yeah. So she said, "What does that mean?"
And I'm just distracted.
What do you think it means?
I was like, it seems like a vague thing to me, and so
I broke it down for you, right?
no, this is good, and this makes sense to me.
Okay.
So it's good. I have my own notes too, but you just covered those up.
She's usually the note taker. I'm not usually the note taker, full disclosure. But okay, so
yeah, so you go ahead because these are your notes, and if we didn't discuss this, did
we're supposed to look over these.
Go over them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I didn't know.
So here's when I said prioritize your marriage, what I think that means is I think excuse me. I think we see so often people have their priorities out of whack. A lot.
Yeah.
We have at times and still do at times.
So I think that's what makes it difficult, right? It's really hard to prioritize your marriage when your other priorities are not in line. Like when the rest of your life is not prioritized right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I think your priority with your spouse sometimes falls on the list because
for sure.
You married that person, you put a ring on it, like they're gonna be there.
Well, right, in theory. I mean, that sounds good. That's what you want to think, but
right.
It doesn't always happen like that.
Like when we got married, I didn't know you were gonna be so needy.
Stop it.
I was saying, for example, like what someone's thinking.
Whatever.
I came from a wounded place, but it's in the past. No, I'm kidding. But really, right? Like we're married. We sleep in the same bed every night. Like, what else do you want from me? Providing.
It's really easy to put everything else in your life in front of your spouse. And
a lot of things, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So if you were to truly list out your priorities and a list that your spouse would agree with, which might be different than what you want to list your priorities as. But if you really list out your priorities, ours, have them wherever you need them, but ours are going to obviously be our spouse, our kids, our spiritual journey, our, God, work, extended family, all of these other things, projects you're working on, your house, whatever. But if you were to really prioritize those, let's say your top 6 or 7 or whatever it would be, and really put them in the order of what gets your most attention and not just your time, right? Like quality time.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference. And I think for most people, spiritual journey, God, their spouse, those things are typically the things that fall first. And often work.
Yeah, when you get busy
and kids get put to the top very quickly.
Yeah.
Like one of your kids throws up at school and gets sick,
well, and
you drop no, I'm not saying this is wrong, but I'm saying you drop everything to go make sure they get home, they're okay, they're safe, all of those things, right? Nothing wrong with that at all. However, I think we've slipped past that and gotten to a point where it's, we have a date night planned and something small happens and, oh, I can't leave the kids. I can't leave the kids. And there are situations obviously where that's okay, but there's also a lot where that's not healthy. Like you need to make sure your time with your spouse is lifted as high as anything else.
And we spend a lot of time with couples, and we spend a lot of time talking to couples, both at retreats and when we're at work things. And I think it's kind of, here's the sad thing, and this is a hard thing. There's so many people who do not have, those of you like that have little kids at home, it's hard to find help sometimes. And I know it's hard to find somebody that you trust, and it's hard to find someone that you want to bring into your home and allow to be an influence for your kids. But I think that's got to be one of the most important things, is that if you don't have family close by, that you find somebody that you can trust that can take your kids for a few hours every few weeks.
Yeah.
So you guys can go out alone. Having time alone with your spouse is vitally important to your marriage long term. And I'm not going to say it's make or break. It's obviously not make or break, but it's really, really important. And there's so many people that don't have that.
Yeah. Did you start on here? We'll put it up there.
No, we're just
Okay.
I don't want to.
Okay, so
It would be like half, and
okay.
we can.
So list out your priorities. Okay. Be honest with yourself. So if you guys really want to do this like as an exercise, list out your priorities. And spouse hopefully is top 3. Should be top 2, but hopefully is top 3. And if that's your starting point, okay, we can work with that. We can move forward. If they're lower than that, then you really need to hear some of this next stuff. But even if they're up there, you probably need to hear some of this next stuff. Okay. So my questions would be, regardless of where they are on the priority list, are you spending enough time with your spouse? I think most people we talk to, the time they spend with their spouse is early in the morning before the crazy happens, and then late in the evening after the crazy's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the quality of that time is that great, but it's time.
Right.
And then there's an occasional date night. There's an occasional just the stars align and all the kids fell asleep on the couch early and we have an extra hour or 2 together.
So though, but when that's your life, and because we have a different situation where we work together, which is also challenging.
It's challenging because we're around each other so much. We don't have a lot of, edge of your seat conversation about what'd you do today.
Right.
Because for the most part, we know what the other person did. Because in a lot of cases, we were 5 feet away from each other for most of the day.
So if that's your life where it is like morning, work, kids, dinner, sports, the things, how do you make sure that you have enough time with your spouse?
Well, and we've been in those seasons. We haven't always worked together. And so I think, and I don't think we always navigated them really well. I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest time is how you gauge your quality time with your spouse. I don't care if you spend all day with your spouse working together or just small increments of time between kids and work and real life. If that time is intentional, and I don't know if I need to get to, no, I don't want to get to that part yet. If that time is intentional and you're making sure you have mental, emotional margin for them when you do get to spend time together, that's really important. I think that you have to be
being
present with your spouse.
Yes.
Because I know how we just talked to, and we've been there for sure, but we talked to so many couples that it's like, well, they're home, but they're on their phone. Or, well, she's home, but she's working her at-home business at all hours of the night. Or he's home, but he's, dealing with stuff at work that, fires he needed to put out when he was at work and that, got pushed over or whatever. So there's a lot of things. And then I think a really common thing we see too is the provider of the home, whether that be the man or the woman, whoever, brings home the bacon, most things, because you can't say nowadays it's mostly men because it's not in our household either. But the provider has the default excuse of like, well, I'm providing for us and I'm doing all that. So if I take a late call or work late or do whatever, that's just how it is. And there are seasons where that is true, but oftentimes those seasons spill over into another season, into another season, into another season.
Sometimes that's actually really a lack of balance. And long term, no business thrives that way. So, I mean, that's a whole nother issue. But so you're saying the fix for all of it is, or, when you have that, you know, kids at home, work the busy schedule, like all the things, um, that it's based on being present and intentional quality time.
Yes.
So, but what does that practically look like? I think is what I'm asking.
Well, if you had read my notes, you would know I'll be getting to that here in a minute. But
Who knows?
so the next thing I was going to say is most marriages, when it comes to boundaries, especially, but just in general, most marriages struggle with one of three things. And I would say this is probably 90% of marital issues stem from one of these three things. Now, there are exceptions to this. There are, how would you say, like there's big issue things that happen that are obvious problems that need to be handled. There's infidelities. There are major losses of trust for a multitude of reasons. It can be emotional. It can be physical.
There's trauma.
There's trauma. There's abuse. There are things that. So don't hear me and say all marital problems just stem from these three things. And if you just fix one of these easy little things, everything's going to be great, because that's not always true. But I will say a lot of those major things do begin as one of these things.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So the three things that I think, not that I think, that I know based off of all the conversations we've had, is communication. And that encompasses miscommunication or lack of communication as well. Communication is a big thing within marriage. So if you're not communicating regularly and communicating well, then that's an issue. The second thing is expectation, or false expectation being put on somebody, is another really big thing. And then I would say the last thing is feeling like you aren't appreciated or that you aren't a priority in the same level that you hold the other person in appreciation or priority. Because if those things are missing equally, I don't think either one of you will point out the fault in the other person in doing that. But it's when one person has a higher appreciation for the other is when that usually comes to the surface really quickly. So all of those things being, I wouldn't say minor, but they're all things that I think pretty much anybody can relate to at one time or another in their marriage, that being the thing.
Right.
And a lot of that is just because of boundaries. Um, when you're not communicating, it's because you're not putting boundaries around the other things in your life that are taking you away from being able to have that communication time with your spouse. When there's false expectations, it's because you don't have boundaries around maybe what expectation should be, or there's false expectation that you're putting on your spouse, whether it be because of physical needs, whether it be because of emotional needs, whether it be just conversation that you're wanting. Sometimes there can often be just expectation or false expectation put because of other boundaries that you're putting in your life or that aren't putting in your life. And then when you're not feeling appreciated, oftentimes that stems from the miscommunication piece, because you haven't communicated or your spouse hasn't received that communication well in understanding how to appreciate you. So here are what I would say are like the four things that I think aren't a cure all, but that will very quickly let you know if you have the proper boundaries in place and you have your priorities correct. Because ultimately that's what this is about, right? Prioritizing your marriage.
Yeah.
Right? And if you want to jump in when I'm doing any of these, then you just jump in. Are you making time for your spouse daily? So if you look up, I know that in many different marital books that we've read, I just sound like Anchor Man, and many different marital books that we've read, making daily time for your spouse is a big deal. Now, people travel for work. People sometimes keep different schedules. You might work nights and he works days. And so making time for each other looks very different. But I still think that's a daily effort to keep your spouse connected and to communicate with your spouse.
Yes.
Right. And then, are you making sure that daily connection fits into their love language? So this is probably it's harder,
intention,
but also easier.
Yeah.
I feel like it narrows down the target.
For sure. Yeah.
Like
it helps you.
There's a saying in shooting: aim small, miss small, right? So if you're shooting at this giant target and you're literally just trying to hit the target, you're waving all around, and when you get on the target, you fire. Well, if you're actually aiming for the dead center bullseye, you'll be a lot more focused when you're trying to pull the trigger. So if you miss, it'll be a lot smaller, right? Same thing. So if you know your spouse's love language, like if I know she's words of affirmation, which I know, when I'm trying to make a daily connection with her, if I lead into that with words, and with her it can be written words, it can be spoken words. So like if I'm leaving the house before I know she's awake and I leave a post-it note on her mirror saying, "Hey, I love you, thanks so much for all you do for our family,"
Game changer.
all of that, her day starts completely different. And I know that because she's told me that. It takes me 30 seconds to do.
Yeah.
And I don't do it enough. I used to do it a lot more than I do currently. The last few weeks we've had some other things going on, which we'll tell you all about in the future video, but we have some exciting things. But we've just been really a lot busier lately than we would normally be. So, but that's a reminder. It's so easy to do. Why am I not taking 30 seconds in the morning and leaving her a note on the mirror, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't know your spouse's love languages, you might not even know your own love languages. Go take a love languages test. The 5 love languages. It's a great little book too, and we're not getting paid or anything to say that. It's a really good little book, and it I think will give you a lot of just head knowledge as to a lot of your heart feelings. So when you're not getting words, like everything can be going great with us. We can be, you know, our kids are healthy, we're healthy, life is good, our business is going good. But if I'm not giving her words, she's going to feel like something's not quite right with us. Our world can be crashing in around us, but if I'm giving her all the words she needs, she feels like Superwoman.
And then the same is true for him. Like one of his top love language is touch. I noticed today, I think we were in the sunroom and I just touched your back or something. And you made like
I purred like a kitten.
Yeah, or something. But he responded to me and not in like a sexy way, more just in a like.
You didn't think it was sexy? Okay.
I'm just saying it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
More just in a like, oh, I needed you to touch me. Like he needed me to touch him. He maybe didn't even know it, but I know that about him. And so like when I did, he was like, oh yeah, I did need that,
And so, and the thing about love languages is there's no right or wrong love language. So when you take a love languages test, because this never fails, we
gotta keep going. We can't keep talking about love.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying if you're going to take the test for the first time, if you take it and you're like, ew, I don't like that person, it's okay. I promise. There's no wrong one. It never fails. We have somebody at one of our retreats that their number one is gifts.
Gifts.
Because gifts is one of them. And so they feel materialistic if they're like, oh, I want gifts. No, a lot of times it stems from maybe things you didn't receive as a child. Like if you didn't live in a family where your dad would just bring you little fun gifts when he would come home from a trip or something, then, or the one time he did it, it meant a lot.
Yeah.
Then that's what you're pulling from when you have that emotional response to it. So it's not, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is really smart for you to know yours, your spouse to know yours, and vice versa. Because when you do have those little times, if there's not a ton of time in your marriage for y'all to spend time together, if you spend that time intentionally speaking their love language, it can change everything.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Number 2 would be, and this goes to boundaries. Are you saying no to other people so you can say yes to your spouse? This one is one of the single-handed biggest game changers with us, because I know there was a point in our life where we were both getting pulled into very different directions, and they weren't bad. I wasn't hanging around with bad people. She wasn't hanging around with bad people.
Yeah, and hear that for sure. It's not that we needed boundaries about who we were hanging out with. It was more about time.
Right. It was time.
100%. It's just about time.
So, and this is something I think we both looked at as how do I say it? Like neither one of us, we're both, well, I was about to say we're both like outgoing people, whatever. No, I am. She's not. But within her group of friends, she's very loyal. She's very trusted. And so if someone in her group says, hey, we're having a get together, we're having a hangout or whatever, maybe it is easier for you to say no than me. I was gonna say it's not easier for her to say no. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I do feel like she's one that would normally say, yeah, that sounds really fun. Let's do that. Well, when we started to have these boundaries of like, well, wait a minute, every one of your yeses to someone else is a no to somebody else. And when you're saying yes to the people that on your priority list need to be 4th or 5th, then you don't have the ability to say yes to that should be number two, right? So, and I say number two because our order is God, spouse, children, work, friendships, and then everything else after that. And friendships and work can flip around depending on the season you're in. Obviously you're not going to quit your job so you can hang out with your friends all the time. Otherwise, you couldn't provide for your family. So that's why I put it there. But that's why we always joke and say you're my number two, which is true. But number two also means anyway. So when you say no to others, you're giving yourself an option to have a yes with your spouse or other things that are higher on your priority list. And so
maybe a conversation too that you have with your spouse, like, hey, I know that I go hang with the guys every single week. Is that cool? Okay? Like, and depending on your relationship, your spouse may or may not say, actually, it's kind of a lot, or,
yeah,
they may not say that, but I think the cognizant of it you are, the better you can make those decisions about when you do need to say no.
yeah. Well, we had a conversation with a couple recently where a lot of their stress was the unknown of how much time one of the spouses was going to spend with their friends. And the default was, well, I get home, we don't really hang out a lot and we don't talk. So what's it matter if I'm with them or if I'm at home doing nothing? Well, this person's view of it and this person's view were different. This person saw this person being available and being at home as being a good thing, where they saw it as I don't do anything when I'm at home. We don't do anything together. So the way they kind of had to flip their thinking was one of them didn't like that the other one went out a lot. The other one felt like they needed the freedom to go out. And so they literally just flipped it to where they said, you can go out one night a week, which was, I think, essentially about all he was doing anyway. But now he gave it permission. And so she said, no, I want you to go be with your friends. And but let's let it be one night a week. So if you want to plan that, that's fine. So then there were some boundaries around it where now it's, well, now you're available to us the other 5 or 6 nights a week. And they were both okay with that. It was just they had to put some boundaries around it because she felt like he was doing it a lot more than he was. He felt like he was doing it a lot less than what she felt. And so anyway, it was just miscommunication and there was no boundaries because it was last minute. It was always unexpected. So now he can say, when he gets the invite on Wednesday night, he can say, yeah, let's do that. And then he tells his wife, hey, I'm going to hang out with the guys this week on Wednesday night. She says, great. I think that's awesome. So that's his night to go, which, like we said, was essentially all he was doing anyway, but it was just boundaries. So it's okay to have healthy boundaries around it, but just communicate those boundaries.
Yeah.
Are you able to separate work from family? So this is a little more acute. Like, I don't think this is something that every couple struggles with, but a lot of couples struggle with this because we live in a world now where we're so connected constantly. Computers, cell phones. What happened? Can we just have pagers again? If you get a 911, hey, if you page me 911, I'll call you.
Pager. Someone sent
All
me a
right.
pager.
If you text me 183, it means you love me. We're cool. But just give me a pager, right? No, but we're so connected. Like these little devices that we have, anyone can reach me at any time, even someone from a third world country that has a really strong accent. Its name is John Smith, and it shows up in my caller ID like he's calling from Alva, Oklahoma. Like anyone in the world can reach you, literally anyone in the world. And what happens is we go from work to driving home from work, doing work on the phone, and then we get home, and because we're available, we might get calls about work, or we're thinking about work, or the call that we might get. And so you can't really separate home from work. And I had someone tell me one day that they envy the day, or they're like basically jealous of the days when, when you went home, you could take your phone off the receiver and put it on top of the phone, and then nobody could reach you. Like nobody could reach you except a neighbor might come over and knock on your door, and you could just not answer it. But now we can be reached in so many ways. That makes you want that so bad.
I was like dreaming of.
Yeah. We've talked about getting a home phone that has the long curly cord on it.
Home phone. We're
We
like
do have a
the
home
only
phone.
people.
Well, we're gonna get the one that like is on the wall, and you get the long cord so you can walk into the other room so your brother and sisters don't hear you talk on the phone to your girlfriend. Yeah, we're gonna get all that. But separating work from family, there was a point in our marriage where we had to set business hours.
Yeah.
Because
out of necessity more than anything, because we were doing it so bad.
Well, we were doing it bad, but we thought that's how we had to do it. Like you thought you had to be available all the time because a lot of our people
Yes.
work their business after work.
I thought that me being available made Courtney and I had this conversation today. I thought me being available meant that I was doing a better job. That's not the case at all. That's not true in most jobs. I mean, you might have a job where if you're a labor and delivery nurse and you're on call, then you have to be available. Like that's different.
Yeah.
But for most things, you being available is actually enabling the people that you work with. There's not a ton of jobs where there's an emergency if you're not available in a time that's, you know, reasonable for you to not be available.
Right. Well, and also if you think of it through the lens, this is probably the best way that I can say it, or that I've had the best reaction from people when I say this is if I don't want to say it wrong, like to specialize it for any one thing, but if what you're doing and how you're working is how you're going to expect your children to work in their job and everybody that works for you to work when they're in your position one day. And if you're looking at that like, oh no, I hope they don't work this hard. I hope they're not going this crazy. I hope they're not always on all the time so they have no room for other things in their life. If any of those things ring true, then that's not okay. Like you need to be living a work lifestyle that is repeatable by other people and that's something that other people wouldn't mind taking on. We had a conversation with someone just a few days ago that told Allison, my people can't know how hard I work. Otherwise, they'll never want to do what I do. And we've heard that a lot in the last however many years. And every time it like makes us cringe. Well, it makes us cringe now.
Yeah.
We used to work harder than we wanted people to work.
Yes.
And we just wouldn't tell them. But if you're working so hard that you have that thought, like people can't know, the people I'm aspiring, to want to be like me one day, my kids, downline, my company, my employees, whatever. If I'm working so hard, I can't be fully honest with them on what all I do, then that's not okay because you're not doing it right. Now, there are seasons. We had a season in 2009 when our company changed a bunch of things and we had to be on for a lot of people a lot. And it was about a 2-month season, maybe.
Yeah.
And thank God we've never had to go through another one of those. But I do think looking back, our business is different today because of that season where we had to be a lot for a lot of people. But it was a season and it was short. And if we'd had to stay in that, I'd be dead right now. So there's no physical way. So I know that there's seasons, but just don't let your season become 3 seasons and 6 seasons and your whole life. Otherwise, it's just nobody wants to be that.
Yeah.
Like you're becoming something that nobody else wants to be a part of. So separating work from life. And if you need to put work hours in place, we work from home. It got to a point where we literally had to say, we're done at 4:00. At 4:00, we're shutting the laptop, we're turning off the phone, we're present for each other, we're present for our kids. And then we had to put boundaries around their bedtime. So we had time together at night. And then there were 1 or 2 nights a week where we would schedule ahead of time that, hey, I might need to work for an hour here, or I might need to work for an hour here. And as long as those boundaries were set and there was a level of expectation, it was fine. And it was beautiful. And it was one of the few things I can look back on and think like that changed our marriage immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully that made sense. Date nights. This is going to be the last thing we talk about. So date nights are kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I don't always do them perfect. Like there are nights we go on a date and it feels like we're going through the motions a little bit because of whatever's going on in the world around us. But one of the things about date nights is I try and make a point to be present on a date night. I hear so many people say, "Oh yeah, we have a date night." Like we schedule a date night, every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it might be. And whatever your pattern is great. We recommend once a week because we believe that you should continually date your spouse. When we were dating before we had kids, we went on dates constantly, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, right? And then you have kids and you don't have dates for a season, and then you start to implement them again. Well, we're in a season in our life where we have a child that's old enough to babysit our younger children. And so we are privy to the opportunity to have a date night once a week. Now, it doesn't always happen. We sat down this morning and did our weekly schedule, and there's not a single night this week we can go on a date. We're going to be together, for most of the nights this week. But
Mhm.
we like to have just her and I time where we go out on a date. It's not going to happen until next Wednesday, which is fine. But, or Thursday. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But those seasons come and go. If we miss a week, it's okay. We aim small, miss small, right? But whatever season you're in, if it's once a month, if it's every other week, you have to prioritize that date night and prioritize it really high. And then the other thing is it's got to be quality time. Like, make sure you've shut all your other windows in your head and you can be present with your spouse. And even if you're in our situation where you are around each other a lot, come up with things to talk about. Talk about things you want to dream about. Talk about things that, conversations they're having with people, fruitful conversations. Speak some life over your spouse and something they're doing or something that they're wanting to take on. Like, that's quality time. It irks me so bad. And I've had plenty of these conversations in the last 5 or 6 months where I hear someone say, "Oh yeah, we prioritize date night," and then I'm like, "Well, what'd you do on your last date night?" And they're like, "Oh, we went and met up with some friends and did that." And I'm like, "You lost me. Like, if you met up with friends, it means that's not one-on-one time with you and your wife. That's hanging out with other people. So try again." But again, it's different for everybody. That's just my belief of it. But the thing that I would tell you is if you went into every date night with your wife hoping to get a second date,
Mm, it's good.
what would that day look like? I mean, really, like when I first took her out, you can bet your butt I opened the door for her. I closed the door for her. I stood up. I didn't sit down at the table until she sat down at the table. I was engaged. I was looking into her eyes. I was asking her questions,
Not on your phone.
not on my phone.
Imagine
My
if
Nokia 9100
yeah, we
back
got
in the
those
day. The
are
only reason to look at it is, I don't know. Anyway, but
but imagine though if you went on a date. I can't imagine going on a date, like a first date. But and someone's on their phone the whole time. But married couples do that,
we see it.
and that's not okay. Like, that's not dating your spouse. That's eating with your spouse. That's different.
Yeah.
And that's not even like engaging eating with your it's just I don't know.
So Allie's very non-confrontational. It's not that I'm confrontational. I just don't mind confrontation. But there have been times we've been out on a date and there'll be a couple like they're just on their phone the whole time. Like, they're just doing this. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'll have the Caesar salad. Add chicken, please. Oh, y'all don't use real sardines to eat. Okay, cool." And like that's what they look like across from each other the whole time. And we're just sitting there like,
I'll spend
should I say something to him?
I'm
I'm
just
like, should I say something to him? Like, hey, bro, like your wife needs to be courted. Like, she needs to be looking in her eyes and tell her how much you love her, please. So don't be that person. Like, engage with your wife. But really, if you went into every date saying, I want to get a second date, you're not going to get a second date if you're on your phone the whole time. You're not going to get a second date if you're bitching about work the whole time. Excuse my French. Can I say that? Sorry. You're not going to get a second date if you're.
no made for kids, so
Oh, good. Okay. So I can say like
family
all
stuff.
the
No, you can't.
like PG-13. But if you're complaining about work or you're complaining about people around you or whatever it might be, no, like when you went on a first date with your spouse, you told them that they had pretty eyes and you told them that you love their hair and you told them things. And I'm not saying you have to be cheesy and quirky and all of that, but get a little cheesy sometimes. Like, I promise you, it's not gonna. There might be a point, especially if you haven't done it in a long time. Your spouse might be like, "What are you trying to do right now? You trying to get me in bed? What are you going for?" But I promise you, I had a guy that I've gotten to know pretty well a few weeks ago. I said two guys, but I told him, "Hey, start like intentionally telling your spouse how attractive they are in whatever way you feel like they need to hear it. Like, you look beautiful." Like, when they get out of the shower and they've got a towel on, like making comments about their body or whatever. Not in a like manly, I want you so bad, that kind of way, but just like in a sweet way, like telling them how beautiful they are, telling them how pretty they are, telling them how, beautiful their eyes, their hair, their makeup, whatever looks, and just see what happens. And I talked to the guy about a week later. He was like, the first 4 or 5 times I said it, she was pushing back, like, what are you trying to get at? What are you trying to get? What do you want from me? That kind of thing. And so I told him, we'll only do it whenever there's clearly nothing that can happen. Like, do it when you're walking out the door to go to work, or do it whenever kids are in the kitchen with you, whisper in her ear or whatever, because it's not like you can immediately run off and just strip your clothes off of each other. So like when it's clear that you don't want something from it, do it. And 4 or 5 days later, we had a conversation. He's like, she's finally receiving it. Like it's working. Like things are getting better. And so I'm telling you, be a little cheesy sometimes. It's okay. Complimenting your wife, and not just on physical things, on personality things, like the way you hear her handle a conversation with somebody, the way that, um, you know, she did something for you that might have been minute and small, but how much you appreciated it. Like those are things that have nothing to do with the way she looks, but everything to do with the way that she handled something or did something or went out of her way to do something. Those compliments are just as great and sometimes even more so.
Yeah.
So that's all I got. What do you got?
I don't need to add to that. I feel like we've been on for a long time, so.
Yeah, sorry, 40 minutes.
I think it's like 50, but
It says 40 right there.
oh, okay, great.
You see me point? Man, my hands are huge.
The only thing I would add is that I think it's important to prioritize what your spouse prioritizes.
If they're prioritizing right.
Okay, here's what I mean. No, let me back up. I think it's important to, well, yeah. Okay, for example, and maybe I'm not saying this right. Maybe you can clarify what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, like yesterday, we've been traveling all last week, got home. Yesterday was a full work day, and it was just one of those days where I was at my desk all day, and I just, I don't know. I was like, by the end of the day, I was just like irritated and annoyed and overwhelmed. And I needed to work out. Like that's just what I needed to do was sweat and I would be fine. And I think you knew that I was a little like, I wasn't being mean, but I was just like, oh,
We won't get into it, but if you know anything about Enneagram, she's a body processor. So when she gets a little pent up, a little bit stressed, a run or a workout
it's a game
is her
changer.
therapy. Right.
It's a game changer.
Okay.
So I think I had mentioned to you that I really wanted to work out because I hadn't worked out for like 4 days because we've been traveling and it was crazy.
Yeah.
And then after the day, I was just like, I want to work out. Well, I was supposed to be making dinner and I love to make dinner. But what did you say? You were like, you said, why don't I go get, we were going to do tacos.
Yeah.
And you said, why don't I just go get set up tortillas and chips and
We have a great little Mexican place down the road. I was like, why don't I go get set up, which is
yeah, you still working.
I was like, you go work out. I'll run and get set up, and then I'll come home and do the ground beef and all that, and then we'll have dinner. It'll be great.
So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
amazing.
She didn't fight me at all. She's like, okay.
Do that.
So
he did that. I worked out. We all sat down and had dinner and we had a really great night. Now, I'm not saying like every time your spouse needs something, you have to help provide that because part of the reason I didn't get to work out yesterday was my fault. Like I didn't prioritize it early enough in the morning, whatever. But what I'm saying is as a team, when one of you can see that the other needs something and it's not doing you any huge disservice to help make that happen,
I mean, sometimes it is, but that's okay.
well, yeah, but
It's
yeah,
serving your spouse by
well, yeah.
taking something off their plate so they can.
But I'm saying especially so when it's not like this huge thing that's really putting you out.
Yeah.
Then do the thing to like prioritize what's important to them.
Yeah.
Or help show that you are. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm not quite
so
the right thing, but
basically, yeah, help your spouse.
It's looking at it as a team.
Keep their priorities.
It's like looking at it as a team perspective.
Yeah.
Like if you looked at the two of us as a team, part of the team was weak for a hot minute, and you had the power to help make that strong.
Right. Yeah.
By essentially knowing what I needed to. So
yeah. Yeah. When you see your teammate falling down for whatever reason, if you can do something to help them, then
yeah,
why not do it?
Do the thing.
Yeah. So, and it really wasn't, I mean, I had to have some phone conversations while I was cooking dinner, but it wouldn't have mattered whether I was doing that or sitting in the office. It wouldn't have mattered. So, yeah. So if you can go out of your way a little bit or a lot to make your spouse's day better and to make their priorities help align for that day, then it's better for everybody, right? If mom is happy, everybody's happy, right? So, but really, if both of us are happy, everybody's happy. So, anyway, we hope that helped you guys, the three of you that are still watching. We appreciate it. But yeah, so those are some things that we've learned over the years. And
What a sporty way to think, she said.
well,
Sporty.
I almost threw a football analogy in there, Courtney, but I didn't. So
There was already the shooting analogy.
yeah. Well, because I was thinking like if you've ran 2 or 3 pass plays in a row and your deep wide outs, the ones that have to run the most, are exhausted, usually you run a short running play off tackle, so they don't have to do anything but stand there and block, and so it helps them catch a breather. So there you go. So I'm proud of. She was probably proud of me because you didn't do it, and then I did it. Hey, I'm appreciating that you were proud of me for a minute. Aim small, catch the ball. So close, Jen. So close. But I know what you're saying. So anyway,
You have to
well, now you've done it, she said. Yeah.
understand that quote too, because otherwise it just sounds like you have tiny goals. Small goals.
Small goals.
Yeah.
They said tiny holes. Like when you shoot, it makes a hole and and I was like, babe, that don't say that. That's yeah.
Tiny goals.
Yeah. No, aim small, miss small. So
Oh my gosh.
elk have a giant vital zone. Okay. Their lungs are huge. So when you look at the side of an elk, you have this giant spot. If you hit anywhere in there, you're good. But if you aim for the dead center of it, if something goes wrong, if they jump a little bit when you shoot, or if you bounce a little bit when you shoot, you can miss
Aim small.
5 inches on either side,
But do you see what
and
I'm
it's still a
we understand it now,
vital
you gotta
kick.
explain it to us, but do you understand what I'm saying? Aim small, miss small. It sounds like you don't have big goals, so it doesn't hurt that much.
Yeah. Like what's the what was the movie where he's like, she keeps me from having unrealistic goals?
Yeah.
The Good Dinosaur.
Good dinosaur. It's like this crazy dinosaur.
He's a triceratops and has all these random animals on him.
And lizard.
And one of this bird that's kind of a little quirky, and they're like, "What's her name?" She's like, "That." He says, "That's Karen. She's my."
She keeps me from having
Well, I know, but he says she's my something advisor. She keeps me from having unrealistic goals, and so yeah, it's kind of that whole thing. Like I set my goals really low, so they're easy to attain. No, don't do that. Aim small, miss small. Good Dinosaur is a
grower.
grower.
That's
Okay.
pretty nice new language.
Oh,
We got us a grower.
what's a grower?
Somebody that wants to build.
Oh, okay.
That's
All
a
right.
grower.
There you go. So anyway, yeah, Courtney said I thought tiny holes too. All right, we love you guys. Hopefully that helps somebody, whether they're watching right now or watching 5 years from now. Hopefully that helps somebody. And we'll be on in 2 more weeks talking about something else that got answered in the survey. And it'll be great. So
if you missed the survey, it's on my Facebook page.
Yeah, so you can get on there and fill it out.
Yep.
Oh, you're locked out, Addie. Addie's trying to come in here. Our high schooler. Love you guys. See ya. It's a touch screen. Can we just touch her?